Welcome to episode 4 of Discovering Life.
So there's something that I've been hearing a lot lately in the spiritual community. Don't be around people who complain a lot or, to the low frequency. I only surround myself with people who talk about only the good things. I only want positive energy around me. And while I understand the intention behind protecting your peace, I think we have started confusing boundaries with avoidance. Avoiding uncomfortable emotions is not spiritual wisdom. Sometimes it's just discomfort wearing spiritual language. And there is a very thin line between, protecting your energy and refusing to witness another person's pain. In fact, even in the Bhagavad Gita, the ideal is not someone who only surrounds themselves with present things. It's someone who actually remains steady amidst both pleasure and pain. If we look at Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, speaking of it speaks of cultivating equanimity and discernment that we call vivek. It's not selective compassion, you know. And think about it. If talking about suffering lowered your frequency, then every therapist, counselor, caregiver, trauma healer, life coach, would be the lowest vibration people on earth. But we know that's not true for sure. Many of them, in fact, are some of the most grounded and emotionally regulated and compassionate people that we'll ever meet. And I'm speaking of it from experience. I have held space for people navigating grief, trauma, heartbreak, anxiety, shame, emotional abuse, physical abuse, violence, loss, and whatnot. And not once have I felt that their suffering has obstructed my own evolution. In fact, if anything, it has expanded me, because true expansion is not pretending that suffering does not exist. It definitely does exist. It's developing the capacity to sit beside it without becoming consumed by it, to witness pain without adding hatred towards the pain, to acknowledge, or in fact, towards anybody causing the pain, to acknowledge suffering without feeling despair. It's about to remind someone that hope exists, without denying what they're feeling. Sometimes suffering can actually become the very doorway through which wisdom develops. Have you ever thought about it? Many spiritual teachers didn't awaken because life was easy for them. They awakened because suffering transformed them. And there are so many stories to prove that. Now, does that mean that you should become, everyone's emotional dumping ground? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. And to be honest, not everyone has the emotional capacity, in fact, training or the nervous system regulation to hold another person's pain. And it's not even about that. Sometimes you're just not in a space, and that's okay. Healthy boundaries are deeply spiritual. But here's the thing, boundaries don't shame people. They don't tell someone that, you're too low vibration for me. You simply say that I'm not the right person to hold this, or maybe I'm not in the right space right now to hold this. And sometimes the kindest thing that you can actually do is gently guide them towards someone who can, a trusted friend, a therapist, a counselor, a support group, and someone better equipped to help them process what they're carrying instead of just avoiding them or shunning them away. There's also a difference between someone who is committed to staying stuck to the same story and someone who is trying to make sense of their suffering. These are two different things, by the way. One is rumination, and the other is a plea to be witnessed. And not every time the person is actually seeking help. So that's a topic for another day. But when we when we dismiss every expression of pain as negative energy, very important to understand, we unintentionally teach them that that you're only welcomed when you're joyful, that they must heal in silence, that they have to become pleasant before they become worthy of being heard, or before they become worthy of your company. But healing doesn't work like that. Sometimes complaints are not exactly complaints. You have to look past it. You have to look beneath it. They're the language probably of an overwhelmed nervous system. Their grief probably is looking for a witness. Their loneliness probably is asking, can someone sit with me until I find my footing again? I would choose friends, honestly, who can do both. Cry deeply when life hurts, laugh wholeheartedly the next day, or maybe it's the next hour for that matter. People who can talk about trauma, but also a cool Netflix show or a teen rom-com or, just relationships and mountains and books and politics maybe some days and poetry and flowers and life in general. There's so much to talk about. But pain should never be ignored, because pain and possibilities coexist. And expansion that has no room for grief is not expansion, it's incomplete. And grief that has no room for expansion becomes a prison. That's a topic for another day. Let's look at it this way. The most grounded spiritual people and I'm saying from experience, I have met aren't those who avoid negative energy. They're actually the ones who can sit beside pain without becoming consumed by it, who can naturally help others remember that beauty and possibility still exist despite the pain that one is experiencing. So, yeah, what I want to say is protect your peace, choose nourishing relationships, honor your boundaries, but never mistake apathy for enlightenment. Compassion can never diminish your light. It, in fact, deepens your humanity, and we need more humanity, more compassion. Thank you.